Hi there, Catherine. How are you?
Hi, folks.
It's just you and me so far.
All right, okay. Well, I apologise for my appearance. I'm having an EEG at the moment, so
That looks interesting.
it's all good fun.
Just indeed. So is this, are you doing this as a volunteer, or is this for your own health? Or this,
No, I've been having some issues.
You don't need to explain too much. I am recording, so I don't want to...
Oh, no, it's okay. It's for health, but it's okay.
Okay, good. Well, I hope it's going well. It looks like...
Oh, it's the end of a very long week. Believe me, I've not slept a wink. I feel like I should be plugged into the Matrix or something. I'm just disappointed I've not learned Kung Fu or to fly a helicopter.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean,
I have this wonderful thing of wires coming out of my back, or the back of my head.
So I was going to say, it is all attached to you, so you go around. That's nice. At least you're not...
I can walk around, but I can't shower, so I'm really looking forward to it getting removed tomorrow. And I'm going to take a long bath.
Yes. Excellent. So how's your courses going?
Okay, I've got very little done this week, quite simply because I'm absolutely shattered, because every time I roll over I'm waking up, and so I'm thinking, okay, I bath tomorrow, shower, then sleep, and then wake up Saturday and be really, really productive at the weekend. That's the theory.
Yes, sounds good. Sounds like you get on. So I finally got... Go ahead.
So why does it say 3 participants?
Well, that's my silent participant recording. You'll see there's 2 of me if you mouse over.
Oh, yeah.
And so the way I record these, it does not work for me to actually record on the same computer that I'm interacting with, because it does like a double recording of the audio, or it loses my audio and records everybody else. So what I have is basically I have a laptop down here to my left, which has got the second Google Plus account, and that one's muted, so it's not recording video or audio. I mean, you don't want to see the side of my head. And so you don't get the echo. And I mean, when we had the 2 weeks or so ago, when I recorded that one where I had the bad echo, that was because the second machine, I had accidentally left the audio on, and so it was picking up an echo that way. But if I do this properly, it's basically just a silent partner there observing the whole conversation. The other neat thing is that in my view here on the interaction with you, I'm seeing just your picture in the large screen, because as I'm talking, you're the only other one on the conversation. If there were more people, I'd see the person who's talking, but I never see myself in that highlighted box. If I were recording off of this machine, I would actually need to manually highlight my own box when I'm talking. The silent partner is just listening to whoever's talking, because that person is never in the focus. So it actually works a lot better for recording purposes. It took me a while to figure this all out, and I screwed it up. I've screwed it up numerous times, but I'm finally getting the hang of it, I think.
Oh, that's good.
Anyway, yeah. So we actually had a pretty decent conversation on Monday. That one did get recorded. We had decent conversations the last couple of times, but I've had a couple of failures at recording. Last week, Thursday, as soon as the third person tried joining the call, I got a bad crash with a blue screen of death, and I just didn't want to deal with messing with any more of that. And then, what was it, the one before was maybe the bad echo, or I don't know. I had another one where the recording didn't work either, and I forget what it was. Oh, I know what it was. I think it was the Thursday before, I had recorded, we had actually a really good session. I'd recorded it all, and then when I went to edit the thing, something crashed during the editing, and I completely lost that recording. So I don't exactly have a whole lot of backups set up here, so it's it either works or it doesn't.
Yeah, well, it's always trial and error with these things, isn't it? Really. So.
Yes. Have you looked at the new Google Plus? Google, not Google Plus, Google Earth version 6.2. They just came out with a new version that's got Google Plus integration. At least the ability to share scenes to Google Plus from Google Earth. It's actually got some other really nice features too. It's got a much more seamless view of the globe. So whereas you used to see that real patchwork of satellite imagery, they really got that worked out to a point where you don't really see that patchwork until you're right down on the detail. And it's a remarkable job that they've done with that. It's really slick looking, very smooth. You don't see that transition until you're really looking for it. So they've done a really nice job with that. And that must have taken a lot of work. I've talked to one of their former engineers who worked on that sort of stuff, and I can see that this is a continuation of some of his work.
Cool.
That's just finally getting around to being there after he's been away from them 2 or 3 years now. Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to using it. I just actually loaded that up right before we got started here, so I haven't actually shared anything from it yet. But anyway, so that's one new thing. Patrick, welcome. Nice to see you. Welcome, and Catherine's here, and
yeah, I apologize for the appareil.
makes it more interesting.
Oh yes.
Yes.
They're finding out whether I actually have a brain or whether I'm just crazy,
well,
you know.
You would think a simple knock would tell you if it's hollow.
Yeah. Well, it might just be mush in there, you see. So.
Pudding or Jello or something like that. As long as it doesn't start dripping out your ears, you're okay.
That's good.
So, Patrick, what's on your mind?
It's not much.
Okay, that's fine. Thursdays have been a little bit more lightly attended in general than Mondays have, and I know a bunch of folks come and are primarily just kind of lurking to see what's going on. That's perfectly good, and that since I'm not pushing anything, I'm just answering questions. It's always a little bit awkward to I don't know, get the conversation going onto a topic. Anyway, have you had a chance to look at the new Google Earth version, Patrick?
I saw the new version of the Blue Marble.
Yeah, well, no, that was yesterday. They just updated Google Earth to 6.2 today. I was just talking to Catherine about how it's got some really nice features. It's got a Google Plus integration, and you can share images directly to Google Plus. That's nice. I haven't used it, and I'm sure it'll be useful, but that's just part of the overall product integration that they've been working on. But what's really neat about this version is that it makes the imagery much more seamless, and it's a really, really slick looking improved interface. You don't really see that patchwork until you get right down to the ground, and even then it's not really that obvious unless you know where you're looking for it.
And my dog's in my window.
I could see, my car in the backyard. It was, right in front of the garage in the back. Yeah, it's pretty good, high quality imagery too.
Cool.
Oh, no, yeah, I didn't even realize I was looking at this yesterday, and I wasn't even paying attention. But I guess
this is just one of those things that gets me all excited. So.
No, it actually looks really amazing looking across at the Pennines near Manchester.
Yeah.
In England, obviously. It looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
No, they've really changed it. Cool.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to dig further to see if there's anything else, but that alone is it's a nice. I mean, it doesn't add much in the way of utility to the product, but it certainly looks a lot nicer and gives a much more best way to put it, but a more realistic experience. As realistic as an Earth view can be without any clouds. Of course, you can add clouds, but that's a whole different story than you're reducing the utility of it. So, Jeffrey, welcome.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Got any geology questions we can answer for you?
Nope, just here to listen.
That's fine, no problem. Everybody listened so far, so we're just we're talking about the new version of Google Earth, which has got some new features, but it's just out today, so not many of us have had a chance to really explore it much.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of it. I just really have a rock, mineral, and gemstone collection and like it as a hobby.
Excellent. What sort of stuff? Just local stuff, or stuff that you purchased, or?
I've been collecting it since about 4th grade. Some of it's purchased, some of it's collected, some of it's rarer stuff than others. Like one of my favorite things I have is a cut gemstone of Moldavite, if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of it. I don't know if I've got any. I don't think I do. I've definitely heard of it. Is Moldavite a variety of? It's a variety of one of these minerals, and I want to say it's like is that a tourmaline variety?
A tektite. It's a tektite meteorite.
Okay.
I'm not a professional, is what I understand, and it's only found in the Czech Republic area, I believe. So it's believed that it was a single impact a really long time ago that created it.
Right. That sounds familiar now. Yep.
And it's a gemstone of it, so it's like a very clear quality, nice cut, jewelry quality gemstone, which is fairly uncommon. So
yeah,
we appreciate having that one.
Did you get that in Europe, or you were over there when you got it, or is that one you just purchased?
Yeah, I purchased that.
Okay. Have you got any interesting geology in your neighborhood?
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know enough people around here who really know the geology well enough to tell me if there was.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
I guess I was fishing for what neighborhood are you in?
Oh, I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay. I grew up in New Jersey, so not too far, although up toward New York City. So, although I have a sister living in Pennsylvania as well, so it's a little bit familiar territory.
I know of a quarry that back in 4th grade I had a teacher that was a geology professor in college, and he was big in teaching it in 4th grade, and he took us on all these different geology trips, and I remember there's a place in PA somewhere that's an old quarry that you can find quartz crystal all the time in, and sometimes, occasionally, there was like 1 or 2 diamonds that were found there or something, they said. So I don't know how.
That would be unusual, but do you remember the name of the quarry?
I don't offhand. I actually have a book, though, somewhere, and I don't have it on hand, that basically has all the different quarries and places to search for rocks and minerals in the PA area.
Yeah, those are nice to have. No, I had a friend in graduate school who did her master's degree at Reams Quarry, which is in that corner, that southeast corner of Pennsylvania, and she was looking at, I think calcite veins or something like that in the limestone there, if I'm not mistaken. But that was a long time ago, so I don't know for sure. I've also seen a number of gigapans of quarries in that part of the world, which I just figured if I recognize the name, I might point you to. But
I know general area it's in. It's in the Westchester area in PA. If that helps you.
Yeah. That I don't know the area quite well enough to nail it down, but yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, geologically, you're in the same sort of area that I grew up in, because the Newark Basin up in northeast New Jersey is basically one of these Triassic rift valleys, and so you're well. If you're in the Rift Valley, I mean, Pennsylvania sits, if not in the Rift Valley, then close to it. I don't know if Philadelphia might be right on the coastal plain. I'm not positive there, but the Gettysburg Basin is very similar to the Newark Basin in terms of the types of rocks you get. You get these basalt flows with occasional zeolites and things like that, which was part of our conversation on Monday. And a lot of arkoses and things that are not terribly interesting to collect. But then you also get Precambrian rocks in that area, and that can give you a wider variety of minerals. So, yeah, neat stuff. I was also just reading today well, I just read the headline pretty much and a brief bit of the story. Crocodile fossil, crocodile-related fossil from southern New Jersey that they excavated near Exit 3 on the New Jersey Turnpike.
That's cool.
And the animal was actually given its Latin name with something like threeite for its Latin species name referring to Exit 3. That was the gist of the article and the humor of it. I know that's part of the coastal plain in that area where the glauconite sands are, but anyway. Trying to think of relevant geology in the area for you.
Yeah. I have some pictures of my rock collection if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, sure. Be my guest because we've got the we got the sharing image.
I have some UV rocks as well. I have a UV rock collection. I'll show you those.
Neat. Have you been up to Franklin, New Jersey?
Those I ordered off eBay in different quantities, the UV stuff. I didn't get to pick those myself, unfortunately.
Okay. You know, you can actually share your screen if you can pull one of those images up.
Yeah.
That would be a fun way for all of us to look at it. A little easier than me pulling up your link there.
Yep.
And Wayne, welcome.
Give me a second to figure out. Oh, right. I got it.
Sure, no problem. Take your time. This is all a learning process, too.
All right, you guys can see it, right?
Yeah. Got it now. Yes, very nice. Nice looking gallery there.
Let me find my favorite one. Which one?
You running a gallery on your own website there?
Yeah.
I used to do that a long time ago. It looks very nice. Ooh,
My
I
favorite
like
one.
it. Yeah, very nice.
And,
I have a couple of samples from Franklin. I've actually been up there to poke around the quarry, but I was actually a little bit more focused on the non-fluorescent minerals when I was last up there. One of these days I'll get back there and actually poke around with the proper black light and see if I can actually find some of the fluorescent minerals. But it's a nice locality if you get up there.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a couple of quarries that you can go into and pick over.
Yeah.
I see a barite rose there on the bottom right.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of fluorite crystals.
This is actually from a few years ago. It's expanded. Oh, sorry. It expanded a lot since then. I have have some other stuff I don't have pictures of. I'll actually go downstairs and get those just to show you because they're my better ones that I recently started collecting. I started doing more valuable gemstones and stuff, and I have a lot of emeralds and diamonds and things like that.
Yep.
And I appreciate that too.
Oh, yeah. Sure. You guys can feel free to chip in anytime.
I can't show you my rock collection. I've got drawers and drawers and drawers of it. It just would not work.
We'll have to try one of these where we call on everybody to bring in or have a sample ready to share.
Yeah, show and tell.
Yeah, exactly. Show and tell. Maybe we'll have to do a separate day for show and tell. That'd be fun.
It's nice that he has, or it sounds like he has the provenance for a lot of these samples as well.
Yes, which is
I recently inherited a rock collection from my grandfather, and there's just boxes of rocks, and every once in a while there's a label that says what the rock is, but there's no where it's from or when it was collected or anything. And
yeah, especially with stones, I do that.
Yeah, a lot of those samples lose a lot of meaning or context when you don't have locations, so that can be a real problem.
Yeah. Those ones were the ones that I started collecting when I was really young, so I didn't really have the thoughtfulness to keep all the information on a lot.
Oh yeah, we all do this.
But
I'm as guilty as anyone.
I'm very picky now when I get new samples to always put all the information I have on the back of each one of them.
Right. I always loathed actually putting a mark on the sample itself.
Yeah.
You know, I hated doing that, but then of course if you separate the box from the sample, it can be really tough. Yep, gemstones.
Yeah, this is my assorted ones. I have.
Yeah, I'm so much more of the mindset of looking at rocks in their natural habitat, the uncut varieties. That, you know, gemstones, yeah, they're pretty little things, but you know, of no value to me.
It had two reasons I wanted to get into it. I obviously enjoyed rocks and minerals, and I figured as long as I'm collecting them, why not also make it profitable? So I tend to get them at very good discounts because I have some connections across the ocean and stuff, and sometimes they'll hook me up with certain things. And I figure as long as I'm collecting something I like, I might as well be able to sell the ones. You know, as I get too many, I sell the ones I don't like as much and make money off of it.
That's a good philosophy, because I have a garage full of rocks that have very little value except for academic teaching value.
These are my diamonds. Doing too well, but
yeah, they don't translate so well through the picture here.
Unfortunately,
they look nice, but
yeah, they're very nice. I appreciate them. It's unfortunate that webcams, all you see is like a blurry little dot.
Well, you know, diamond is clear anyway, so yeah, you don't get much appreciation out of it visually. Well, I suppose it's sparkle, but
yeah. This is my emeralds, and I believe emerald is beryl, right?
Yes, variety of.
Yeah, the other ones are beryls that are down here at the bottom, if you can even see that.
Yep.
And so. And all these, I keep all the labels on the back of each one of the samples, so it makes it nice and easy to keep them all sorted now. Yeah. Oh, I'll just show you the Moldavite, though, because that's the one I really wanted to show you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that's also a cut piece.
Yeah, this one is.
Okay, neat.
It's 11 carats. This one. Yeah, I do want to find a raw piece of Moldavite somewhere, though, because they're brilliant. They look, they have all these shards coming out from them. I mean, they literally look so exotic. I've never seen any sort of a mineral that kind of had that kind of a shape to it, so I would love to get a raw piece of Moldavite, too.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I in my academic career have kind of studiously avoided rock shops, and I guess it's fun to go into rock shops to kind of go through their unmarked bins and stuff like that, and occasionally you find really neat things of some, you know, academic teaching value. But you know, when it comes to the gemstones and stuff like that, I've just generally not bothered to try and, you know, begin with that. But that's just me, you know. Not everybody.
Yeah, I mean, from an academic standpoint, they're pretty boring academically.
No, not necessarily boring, just not as well. Especially the cut gemstones. You know, once you got that, they've kind of lost all their context. You know, they're still useful as teaching tools for you know, testing hardness and showing mineral properties and things like that. So they're not without value, but from an academic standpoint of understanding the geologic history of a region, they're a lot less useful.
Yeah.
So, but again, you know, that's I recognize that I have a decidedly esoteric sort of view of that.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, Dungeons and Dragons ruined me on that. Now I can walk around with a satchel of like gemstones and be like, "I'll take a beer. Here's a ruby."
Yeah. Yeah. Wayne, I don't know if you have a microphone there. If you don't, one thing you can do if you want to participate is use the chat on the left side of the screen. There's a little box at the bottom left for typing in chat. You're welcome to just lurk if you want to just lurk, but I just figured we'd extend that invitation for you. Aha. Well, if you got a question, feel free to ask it. We'll do what we can. And if you want to just watch and listen, that's fine too. Trying to think what other geology there is in the news these days. There's always geology in the news, but I didn't do a whole lot of searching before I came on today.
I have a question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
You know what amertine is, right? Type of quartz.
It's not one I'm really familiar with, but go ahead, ask away.
Someone once mentioned that amertine will never naturally form in its bicolor form of green and orange. Is that true? That they're always artificial if they're green and orange?
I have to say that as far as quartz varieties go, green and orange is definitely not common. I've seen greenish varieties of quartz. I've seen kind of the rust sort of orangish sort of color, citrine sort of variety. I've never seen the two together.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the origin of that coloration is. Neither of those are particularly common varieties.
Yeah.
I've seen, the citrine variety, I've seen little bits of it. I've seen some nice gem quality pieces too, but that mostly in rock shops. The greenish varieties of quartz are usually some sort of other mineral in there giving it the green color, not the quartz itself being natively green. And so like a little bit of chlorite in there mixed in with
a lot of gemstone colors, right? That it's some other...
Yeah, that is true of many of them. Not all. In fact, some of the more common quartz varieties, jasper, is basically an intergrowth of iron oxide, hematite, with quartz. So that's clearly a color causing mechanism. Other times, it's not so much impurities or other minerals as just, impurities in the crystalline structure. So like I think it's amethyst, the purple variety, is an iron impurity, but within the quartz structure, not as a separate mineral. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because someone had mentioned that when you see green and orange together, it means that it's unnatural, but I got this particular gemstone certified as untreated, but I'm not sure if it's accurate or not. But it's basically a mix where half of it, you probably won't be able to see it very well, but half of it's green and half of it's orange.
Yeah.
So I can't see it.
Again, with that coloration, if it's quartz, I'll take your word for it, but I've not seen that kind of coloration.
Well, I know it's quartz just because I can do the Mohs test on it, and
right, exactly,
conductivity test and all that. So I do know it's a form of quartz. I just don't know if it's natural or not. It could have been made in a lab.
I've never seen any natural quartz like that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just not in my experience.
Sure.
And again, anytime you're looking with these varieties, you're often looking at some pretty rare occurrences, so it might just not have crossed my radar. And again, I'm not real familiar with what the gem community is searching for on these sorts of things. So.
Yeah, makes sense. I remember I have a big chunk of blue quartz, which I was told is natural, but is not very common. It's only found in a few spots.
It's definitely true that it is natural and it's not common. I've seen bluish quartzes. I've never really seen a really blue quartz. That is to say, there's a bunch of kind of darker, smoky quartzes that get into a slightly bluish color. But I mean, there's a lot of good blue minerals that I've seen. Clearly varieties that are blue. The quartz that I've seen, I've heard things described as blue. I've never really seen a quartz that I felt was really blue colored. But then again, it is a rare one.
Yeah, I'll have to show it to you. I remember it was actually my geology professor back in 4th grade who got me this sample because it was one of my favorite samples back then. And I obviously trusted him, and he told me it came from. There's a farm in Pennsylvania, which is one of the very few places you can even find blue quartz at all. And he got a sample of that from me, and it's the size of a small brick, and it's very, very, very rich blue, a dark blue, but a rich blue. I wouldn't call it smoky at all. I definitely call it a nice, vibrant blue, just on the darker side.
The one place that I've been in the field where blue quartz was described was the Southern Appalachians, and the quartz that I saw, most of it was kind of either a normal quartz, just a relatively clear grayish color, or a smoky quartz, verging maybe on blue. So it was not a distinctively blue color. So I can't say that I've really got much experience with that. But I do know that blue quartz is described, and I've just not really had a chance.
Actually, have a picture of it here. It was in the
yeah, sure.
we saw before. So let me bring it back up for you.
Yep.
And unfortunately, you can't see the blue as well just because of the angle. But it's this one here. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this one here.
On the right-hand side in the middle, sort of there?
Yeah.
Kind of little
bigger one.
Yeah.
In the middle. Right. You can see the taint of blue in the lower left of it. There's some dirt on it, so you can't really see it. But it is a rich blue color on the underside, which you can't see as well because of the dirt and everything.
Yeah, definitely not the sort of blue that I have seen. I mean, I have not seen that type of blue in quartz. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely supposed to be fairly rare from what I'm told.
Yep. Yeah. So many of these gems, I was looking at that blue geode in the back there, which is obviously a coloration job.
Yeah.
Somebody's
that one was.
That. So many of these gems are giving coloration to increase their value or whatever. I don't know all the techniques involved in doing that. I mean, some are simple staining. But
yeah, I've actually studied some of the techniques because I need to be able to identify some of it if I'm going to identify the value of the gemstone.
Right.
So yeah, there are definitely a lot of techniques. The most common one is just heating it. Just making it hotter will make the color come out in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that there are other color-causing mechanisms, like to get that blue color in halite, in just rock salt, which is often used for when you're sprinkling it on sidewalks as or getting rid of ice and stuff like that. That's usually X-ray radiation that causes that. Yep, definitely a bluish there.
Yeah, this one's a more common blue quartz that I purchased. It only has that faint blue that you're probably more used to seeing.
Yeah, and again, I'm not even used to seeing it in a nice gem quality piece like that. So the bluish color was just vaguely bluish. In the blue sky that day.
Yeah. I have some natural diamonds as well, which are really cool. Still, you couldn't cut them if you wanted to because they're just not nice enough, but they're nice to have.
Have you been up to Herkimer, New York?
No, but I'm familiar with the Herkimer diamonds and all that.
Yeah. That's actually a fun spot. They've got a couple of quarries there where you can go and dig, and they'll usually do some blasting so that you get some loose stuff. I actually found a nicer piece right on the roadside in front of one of those quarries, just a nice vug with lots of quartz crystals, not the doubly terminated ones, but just a cavity lining that was completely covered in a druzy sort of quartz, which was but a little bit coarser grained, not really that druzy. So. Yeah,
I'd love to go there. I've seen some videos of people, going there with their hammers and doing it. It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I definitely want to hit that up.
Yeah. Anyway, in its native environment, natural habitat, that's what
Yeah.
That's the way I like to see the rocks.
Yeah.
And if you're going up there, you could make that. That would actually make a pretty nice weekend. You could do Herkimer, and you could get up to Gore Mountain and see the Garnet Quarry up there, which is not terribly far away. Probably another hour or two drive from there, but it'd be a nice rock collecting weekend to get a couple of those together.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun. I definitely appreciate them in their natural environment too. I think. For me, I like having them sort of in every possible state. It kind of like finishes out the collection for me in many ways.
Yep.
And like I said, I've always had an appreciation for their beauty. So when you have the cut version, you have these really beautiful things that are completely natural other than the cut in most cases. And it's I don't know, it's nice to appreciate them like that. I love, I have this one topaz that's just big enough that you can see through it. And it's a kaleidoscope, and it's the coolest thing ever to me, and I'm like a little kid with it.
I was out in Utah trying to find the topaz. There's a public area for collecting out there. It's state-owned land, and it's marked. But it's been picked over. I mean, at least the places that I went to had already been picked over. And, it's a rhyolite tuff, and there are bugs in there that have the topaz. And I've seen topaz from that locality, and it looks, real nice. But I couldn't for the life of me find any of the time that I was out there. I only had an hour or so to spend, but yeah.
Right here in Philly, there's a great spot to get garnets. It's Tinicum Park, and the whole area just right near the water in Philly itself. It's like you're literally still in the city, and they have these big boulders that are just completely speckled with garnets. I mean, you can take it out of there.
That's
garnets.
Not uncommon, because actually garnet's a fairly common metamorphic mineral. So that actually tells me a little bit more about the geology right there in Philadelphia, because that's part of, if not the Redding prong per se, but the general rocks of that Precambrian age. That's where you're going to find the garnets in that part of the world. And that goes down toward Baltimore. There's you're on one side of the rift basins, because you've got those Precambrian rocks, I think, on both sides of the rift basins down in that area. And so, that's clearly in the Precambrian where you've got those. Garnets are very common. Lots and lots of garnets, and not all gem quality. But if you ever get up to Gore Mountain, those are the big garnets. Those are, again, not really gem quality, although you could probably extract some gem quality stuff out of there. They're mining it for abrasive. They're using it in fine woodworking, sandpaper, and such.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason gems cost so much, because gem qualities aren't that common.
Yes, so, of course.
But the one thing I remember when I first found that big brick of garnets, when I was pretty young at the time, but I knew how to identify stones and stuff because of my teacher and everything, and I found that, and I thought I was going to be rich, so I took buckets and buckets of garnets back home, and I started going through. I didn't find anything, but I mean, I literally picked that rock clean. It was like as big as me, and when I was done, there was this little tiny stub there.
Yep. Oh, we just lost Kobe there. I was just going to ask him what he had on his mind, but he got out of here before we got a chance. My T-shirt, I don't know if you can see that, Salt Rocks. That's from the Hutchinson Salt Mines down here in Kansas. As my geology career has gone on, I've accumulated a lot of T-shirts that have geological connections.
Yeah.
This just happened to be what I threw on this morning. It's another nice spot. I mean, no gem quality to the halite crystals, but really neat. They take you on the underground mine tour, and they actually have just a pile of salt that's been broken up that you can go and pick off pieces, and they're expecting most people to pick off, a single crystal or two, something that'll fit in your hand. Well, what fits in my hand is generally as big a piece as I can carry without attracting too much attention. I have a couple of nice big chunks of salt there, with both halite and sylvite. Which are really nice, and they actually have pretty nice layering in there. You can actually, it's all over the walls of the mines there. I would love to actually take out a larger couple of chunks, but they let you take one sample home, and then after that you start paying for them. So got to be a little cautious about what you take.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's fun collecting as well. Keep those samples dry, though.
Yeah.
Don't store them in a humid environment.
Yeah, or else they'll just have a puddle.
They tend to attract moisture. Yeah. And when you get a salt sample that's collecting too much moisture, it's just not fun to play with it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you could take some of those silica packets that they put in to keep things dry.
Yeah, actually, I just keep it in a Ziploc bag, which, I mean, the salt itself keeps it fairly dry. Yeah, the silica packets would do an even better job, but yeah, just keeping a Ziploc bag so it's not. And actually, most of the year when it's dry enough, certainly in this part of Kansas, it's dry enough most of the year, it's not an issue. But if I were living, say, in Philadelphia or Washington, D.C., in the middle of summer with high humidity, I don't know if I'd want a salt sample sitting on a shelf with that much humidity is going to attract so much moisture, it's going to begin to actually drip and bleed, and you're going to have a salt trail all over the place, which is no fun.
Yeah.
Of course, the salt mine down there in Hutchinson, one of the other things they do in the disused portions of that is they store movie memorabilia. In fact, they've got the original Superman costume on display down there, and all kinds of other stuff. They've got a little area there next to their gift shop, which is movie memorabilia. But because of the controlled conditions of humidity and temperature and stuff, it's a real good environment for that. Nuno, welcome to the discussion here. I don't know if you've got a webcam or feel free to just type in the or if you do have audio, just ask your question if you got one. Or if you just want to lurk, just lurk. That's fine. Wife's a geo major. Okay, neat. What you studying? Anything in particular? Or? Hello, geo major wife. College, excellent.
Yo guys, what's up? She actually studied geology, and then she graduated. Then she took network engineering, another course. So now she works with me in computer and telco business.
Excellent. Well, it's nice to know that geologists can work across diverse fields there.
Yeah, but she shares the passion. She still likes the old geology passion, and probably it's related with that big question: where do we come from and whatnot?
Sure.
And
taking that question down a notch, where are you at now? I'm guessing by the time of night that you're somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, right now we're in Portugal.
Okay, excellent. Some great geology there. I've seen some spectacular pictures of
flaws,
structural geology along the shorelines, folds and stuff.
Yeah, faults and whatnot. Yeah, there's a lot of things to be discovered in this region. Actually, recently, well, not so recently, but in the last 10 years, they've been discovering like dinosaurs remains and stuff like that. Mostly because college here actually does a lot of in local field trips. So sometimes people go on the bus, like the kids from college go into the bus, and then while they're traveling, they're looking on their windows, and sometimes, hey, stop, let's check that out. And sometimes
this sounds like a geologist, just all of a sudden slamming on the brakes and pulling over to look at a roadside outcrop. Yep.
Yeah, sometimes one might get lucky. Hold on.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, she's asking where are you guys from?
So I'm hosting this from Kansas in the U.S., middle of the country, not terribly exciting geology. Chalk is what we've got around here. Jaw, Cretaceous seaway, some nice fossils if you're into that. But for myself, I'm kind of a hard rock geologist, so I got to go to Colorado to find the nearest hard rocks.
What about the other folks?
I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States.
Philadelphia, Kansas. What about you?
I'm in Indiana right now.
Wow.
In the United States. So I got glacial till everywhere.
Oh, by the way, one pop quiz. You guys look like you're in different points from the U.S. What do you? Is there a correlation between seismology events and 2012 end of the world prophecies, quote unquote?
Well,
you guys are reading
a scientific relation between them? Probably not.
One might get like in my region of the world. Sorry to interrupt, but in this particular region, and where there's tectonic plates that are always like grinding on each other, we have a lot of seismic events here, although in a small scale. But one might say that is related to 2012, but there's no correlation, in my humble opinion. You guys might see an increase of seismic.
Yeah, this is something that's been up in the news quite a bit recently, and there is, from a scientific standpoint, no increase in seismic activity now compared to any time historically. These things get in the news, and certainly they make a lot of news. But as far as the actual numbers go, there's no more activity now than there has been for a while. And people will tie it to 2012, and
yeah, that's when they can't explain stuff
like that. If we know the end of the world, I will be surprised.
I've learned recently that there was a solar flare. Might that create seismic events?
That was actually a topic of discussion on Twitter just recently among a couple of us geologists, and again, there's no correlation. It's you might get some coincidence occurring every once in a while, but there's no correlation. Solar flare, there's no mechanism by which a solar flare would affect anything that's going to trigger an earthquake. Solar flares have lots of effect on atmospheric phenomenon, on radio waves and things like that, but those things don't affect seismic activity.
But might affect like meteor, like the weather. And affecting the weather, the scale, just half a degree of temperature changing for more or less. In this case, with the solar flare, in this case, might be just 1 degree or half degree more. It might affect like the thermodynamics from the whole mantle.
Yeah, I don't buy into. I mean, if you want to make some sort of an argument on that, it's hard to dispute those things because those are all a lot of arm waving and not very much actual substance in terms of explanation. If you want to believe that stuff, go ahead and believe that stuff. But there's no scientific basis for it.
There's no paper. Hold on.
Sure.
I did hear of some correlation between electromagnetic fields and earthquakes that might suggest, I'm not saying that solar flares do anything, I didn't read anything on that, but it might be possible that if there is a correlation there, and I know there's at least some scientific talk on that a solar flare could possibly induce an EM field that could then, through piezoelectric effect, cause the quartz crystal in the ground maybe to vibrate in a certain way that would cause, maybe something to trigger in terms of an earthquake or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds very, very big. I mean, there are like little bits of connections there, but it doesn't add up to anything. But again, I'm just saying from a scientific standpoint. I'm not saying that there aren't little bits of possible connections, but the magnitudes of the effects are completely off for triggering earthquakes. I mean, the earthquakes are happening because of normal tectonic activity. There's no connection to the solar activity per se. And I mean, if there was, you'd see it. I mean, I'd like to see a more reasoned scientific explanation of how those are connected.
It's mostly
I comment on that too much.
The very connection between electrical fields and earthquakes themselves is already speculatory just right there. So definitely it's a leap to say there's really any sort of connection. But there is one thing that happened very recently, and I'm not saying there's any connection in 2012, but I am going to say this. We had an earthquake in Pennsylvania for the first time in my entire life not too long ago, and I felt it right here in Philly. And it was supposedly an extremely rare event for this part of the country.
Was that the Virginia quake?
Yeah.
Because you would have been able to feel it. Yeah. So I wasn't actually in.
No. We just but it was enough to make our whole house sway back and forth significantly. Like it was.
Yeah, East Coast quakes are uncommon, but they do happen. I mean, the first earthquake I ever felt was growing up in New Jersey and northern New Jersey. It was a small quake on the Ramapo Fault. They're not common, but they do happen.
Yeah. It surprised me how far it traveled as well, because it wasn't that big of a quake, and I felt it strong here.
Yeah, and that's actually something that is well recognized geologically, is that when you have earthquakes in stable cratonic areas that are not tectonically active, they are felt much further away. So the New Madrid earthquakes back in 1811, 1812, in New Madrid, Missouri, on the Mississippi River, those were in the middle of the continent, far away from normal plate boundaries, and they were extremely strong earthquakes in the first place, but they were felt over almost the entire continent. I mean, the quakes themselves caused church bells in Boston to ring. I mean, there was enough swaying of the buildings to cause that. If you had a similar-sized earthquake on the San Andreas Fault, it would maybe be felt across the Intermontane West, but you would not feel it, out to Denver or something like that. You wouldn't feel it nearly as far away because of the nature of the rocks in that region. So yeah, no question, it is abnormal for that small a quake to be felt, but that's because of the nature of where it was occurring.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
What about Wayne's question? He wrote it down on the chat box.
Oh, sorry. Consensus on oil and gas fracking questions and seismic events. So it's another question that's been discussed quite a bit recently. And to answer that, here's my understanding of it. Obviously, when you're actually doing the fracking, you're pumping fluids into the ground, into formations that are generally fairly tightly bound. There's not a lot of fracturing in them to begin with, or you wouldn't be fracking them in the first place. The actual high-pressure fluids cause fracturing. I mean, that is by its nature earthquake activity, although on generally a very small scale. Imperceptible in most cases. What has been perceived and noted is that when these drilling fluids are disposed of, there are different ways of disposing them in different areas, but in Arkansas and Oklahoma and up in Ohio, there are a number of places where these drilling fluids have been injected into deep wells, again under pressure, but injected into aquifers or other geologic formations that are more permeable. And there, where that high-pressure fluid has gone out, it has actually triggered some quakes. And those quakes can be larger. There was this Oklahoma quake that I actually felt here in Kansas last November. That was probably not from fracking, although it was in a region where fracking is done. There's not a direct link that's been established there. On the other hand, in Arkansas, where some of these deep injection wells have been used, there have been a swarm of earthquakes associated with probable injection of these fluids. So it's clear that injecting high-pressure fluids will cause fracturing. It's clear that under certain conditions, these fluids can trigger quakes that were already, the stress was there, and so they're just actually the triggering event. But we've never seen, at least a documented case, where these things have triggered very large quakes. So maybe up to a magnitude 3 or 4 where it would be felt, but not be very damaging. But never really a documented case of magnitude 5 or larger quake, which is usually much more damaging. So that's my understanding of the science behind it right now, the state of the art there.
In some ways, is that even a bad thing? Because I would think that, yes, while it triggers an earthquake, if you don't trigger it early, it's just going to build up more pressure and trigger later and be bigger anyway. So is that even a bad thing?
I mean, ever since the triggering association was established and the idea was established that, we could potentially trigger earthquakes, one of the questions that's always been out there is, well, could you go to the San Andreas Fault, for example, and start triggering earthquakes? And the answer is hypothetically, yes, you could. Yeah. If you pump high-pressure fluids down into the fault zone, you could. The problem is if you tried triggering a large quake like that or any potentially damaging earthquake like that, you would have liability, legal liability, and there's just no way that you're going to get people to do that. The idea would be, ideally, after a large quake occurred naturally, all right, you would want to then maybe start pumping fluid into that fault zone to prevent the fault from locking up again and building up the stress, right, so that you would, prevent it from having a big quake in the future. The problem is in those areas where there's already a lot of stress built up, the odds are you would trigger some damaging quakes, and then you got liability issues. I mean, it's one thing if a large earthquake occurs and it's an act of God, nobody can really be blamed. If you start, trying to control that process, it's possible you could prevent large quakes in the long term, but in the short term, you're likely to cause quakes that are going to be damaging enough that the liability costs are going to be, too high. So it's in the American legal system, I have a hard time believing that that's ever going to be a practical solution. Although from a purely theoretical standpoint, yeah, you could potentially prevent larger quakes by triggering a lot of smaller quakes.
I mean, yeah, I can almost picture just a line of, buildings with tubes down into the ground a mile apart across the thing, just constantly, every week or however long, pumping more in there, and constantly shakes a little around there, but you never get a real quake. It's just constantly vibrating a little every once in a while.
And in fact, there are sections of the San Andreas Fault that are naturally lubricated, and I don't mean by fluids necessarily, but just the mineralogy there is such that the fault doesn't lock up. Right. So there's a creeping segment south of San Francisco that basically never has quakes larger than about a magnitude 3 or 4. So there are no real damaging earthquakes in there, and yet it's constantly having these smaller quakes.
Yeah, they went to a city, I think it might even be around here or somewhere, but it's that same thing, and you see the streets, and you can see where it was first built, and they're off by like a foot now, and they've never had a quake, and you just see everything shifted.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the ideal sort of situation if you're going to have that stress, at least to do it slowly and continuously over time, where it doesn't cause a damaging quake. But it's one of those things where the liability issues are so hard to imagine overcoming that I can't see a practical way that you would do that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the problem with this disposal of fracking fluids, the reason they're injecting them into these deep wells in the first place is because a lot of these fluids are not particularly nice. I mean, they've got some nasty stuff dissolved in them that you wouldn't want in a drinking water aquifer in the shallow crust. And so they're trying to dispose them into the deep crust because at least nobody's going to go looking for drinking water down there. The problem is if you're disposing them into an area where there already are stresses, the addition of those fluids basically reduces the stresses and causes the potential for quakes. And this is another problem, with geothermal drilling. In a number of areas where you've got shallow magmatic systems, you could generate a really nice geothermal project if you can get water pumped down into there, allow it to heat up from the natural heat of the intrusion, and then pump it out elsewhere. The problem is, in a lot of these magmatic systems, you don't necessarily have a network of fractures. So if you try going into one of those things and fracking, problem is they're also under stress. And they've done this in a couple of places where you begin trying to do the fracking sort of thing to generate just enough porosity to get the water through there, and you can generate damaging quakes as a byproduct of that, and that's potentially all kinds of liability problems. And so there have been a number of geothermal experiments, one in Switzerland, another one out in California, that have basically been shut down on the concerns of the possibility of causing damaging quakes by this thing. Again, it becomes a liability thing. And yet, if you're going to do a fracking on any sort of a really large scale, it's almost a byproduct of that process. And then you just got to weigh the societal, is the risk worth the potential, or is the value that you're going to get out of it worth the potential risks?
To me, it seems like it would be.
Well, to society as a whole, yes. But if you happen to own a house in that area, and every once in a while you're going to have an earthquake that's going to cause all the mirrors to collapse and stuff like that, well, you'd sure like to be compensated for that.
I've read that the DoD are actually studying ways to introduce earthquakes in modern warfare theater. Have you heard of these?
Well, it sounds like a conspiracy theory. I mean, you could do it theoretically, but could you do it in a controlled manner where it actually achieves some sort of a specific goal? That's less likely. This is the plot of one of the Superman movies, right? Was that Lex Luthor was going to go and put fluids into the San Andreas fault zone and trigger a big earthquake.
And
it's possible. And so if I were a bad guy, I'd be looking into it. But if you're a military, there are a lot of other things you can do geologically that would have some effect. Actually, this is part of our discussion last time. We talked about some of the things that the military can use geology to achieve their goals, triggering landslides and stuff like that to try and chase down parasites. One of the things that we talked about last time. Triggering earthquakes is one of those evil genius sort of things that I don't see any practical application in the short term. I'm not saying you could not find something. Maybe somewhere there's a case where you could actually make a case for using that, but I think it's better generally in the movies than it is in real life.
Some conspiracy theorists stated that what happened in Thailand a couple of years ago was actually a test run to test one of these super secret weapons, very hush-hush stuff. Have you read anything like this? No.
I try and avoid.
This is very conspiracy theorists.
Life is short, and I don't have time for that kind of junk.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out if actually there was some truthfulness, some veracity.
Well, many of these conspiracy theories are based on, conceptually possible sort of things, scientifically not unreasonable sort of things. It's just, and there's clearly entertainment value. Conspiracy theories, I don't mean to say that they're completely worthless. They have great entertainment value. But, you know, as far as worrying at night about conspiracy theories, I got better things to do with my life than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, enjoy them for their entertainment value. They're great for that. They make good movies. But you know, if you're up at night worrying about these things, if you're, you know, spending a lot of time on these things, I think there's probably better things you can do with your time.
Yeah, I actually agree. I'm just trying to figure out how I was trying to actually acknowledge how much big of a lie could or not could be this sort of statement. It's just yeah, it's just
It's hard to quantify too. I mean, that's the other thing. You know, how do you investigate this? How do you adequately answer any of these sorts of things? If people want to believe stuff, you know, they'll believe stuff, and you know, you're not going to convince them otherwise.
Okay, I'll make the question in another way. It's feasible if one is committed to it, right? To like explore.
Well, it may be feasible. I mean, the scientific answer, and I'm approaching this all from a scientific standpoint, which is not a lot of fun. All right, but you know, the scientific answer is it may be feasible. There's certainly some reason to believe it's feasible. Until you actually test it, it's hard to know for sure whether it's feasible, though. I mean, you know, to say it's theoretically possible is one thing. To actually go out and do it is a completely...
Yeah, it's another game. It's a brand new game.
Yeah. You know,
it's possible. I believe it is.
It's a worthwhile thought experiment, and actually under some circumstances it might even be a useful practical thing. But it's hard to evaluate in the absence of actual data.
I'd like to give my 2 cents on conspiracy theories as a whole.
Oh, be my guest.
My view is this. The government is very well funded and very slick. So I'm sure a lot of the secrets they have probably, if they were to reveal them, would sound like a conspiracy theory. That being said, the ones out there have no evidence, have no proof, so it's just guessing in the dark at what those things could be. And as much fun as it is, if we don't have any way of narrowing it down, I'm not one to jump into conspiracy theories because it's all conjecture. But I definitely believe there are things that are conspiracy theory-like that are true and happening. We just have no idea what those are, and I just know that from someone who's worked for the government a lot and know they have a lot of secrets.
Yeah. Your hypothesis that the government is well funded, I don't know if our government's not terribly well funded at this point, so they're good at spending money.
You
They don't necessarily have all that money to spend.
Well, keep in mind, things that sounded very conspiracy theory-like have come out in the past. I mean,
I don't want to turn this into a discussion of conspiracy theories, so let's move along. Fabrizio, I was just about to wrap things up, but if you got a geology question, jump right in. Otherwise, I'm going to try and wind things down here.
What is the most expensive rock on the planet?
Oh, boy.
Bazinga.
The whole planet is a big rock. That's a pretty expensive rock. You're talking about gemstone sort of quality, that kind of thing, or just you know, type of rock. What's valuable in terms of, you know, economically? What's the best ore? What sort of question? I'm not sure I see where the angle you're coming at it with.
I don't know. I'd say gemstone.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for this. Maybe Jeffrey wants to weigh in on this.
I have no idea, to tell you the truth. I mean, most of the really expensive...
I thought this is what geologists did. I thought they worked with, like, rich billionaires to find, like, mines and stuff, and, like...
Well, some geologists do that. That doesn't have to be my own expertise, so...
Sorry, I got a call. Hi,
That's
is this the Pentagon?
Brandon, you also just joined. If you got a question, feel free to pipe up. Otherwise, I'm ready to wind this one down. So.
Oh yeah, I don't have any questions.
No questions. Okay. Fair enough. And that's all great. And I've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes here, so I'm ready to wind down. If you guys actually want to continue the discussion, you're more than welcome to.
So, Ron, you're the official geologist here?
Well, I'm the one who's hosting the talk here, and yes, I have a training in geology, so I'm not the only geologist.
So when can I take you to Africa to find some mines?
You produce the money, I've got the time.
All right.
Why are we going to Africa?
I don't know. Well, I don't know where are we going? India?
Well, I don't know. What are you looking for? What kind
Actually,
of mines?
we could go to Indonesia for gold.
Yeah, Indonesia would be a good place to go looking for gold. There's plenty of interesting stuff too, but a lot of it's already pretty well developed.
Fabrizio,
Yeah.
sitting here next to a box of diamonds, just so you know.
Oh.
In the middle, you're probably not seeing real well.
You two want to continue this conversation and put some evil schemes together there.
You know the next wave of computers will be built with diamond processors.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Not that the current...
And they can actually mine, they can actually manufacture diamonds now.
Yep.
The Mexicans were the first ones to do it, using tequila.
Actually, General Electric was the first ones to do it. But
That's not what I heard.
okay. Then you're the expert on it. Gentlemen, I run these geology office hours every Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that's 2200 GMT. You're certainly more than welcome to keep on conversing if you want, but I'm going to wrap it up from my end. And
thank you for your time. Thanks, sir.
thank you all for coming. I do appreciate the time.
I'll be more prepared next time I come in.
That's fine. We did record this one. I'll be uploading it to YouTube in a while, and so.
Oh no!
Watch my Google Plus page, and you'll see when I post it. If I don't screw up the editing. So, anyway, have yourselves a good weekend. See you all on Monday.
Thank you. Cheers.